Hey, welcome to Charlie's Open Mic. On today's show, we're going to talk about the power of collaboration, and we're going to meet with a musician and songwriter by the name of Matt Harmon. If you appreciate this kind of content, please hit the subscribe button and check us out on Patreon. Hey, welcome to Open Mic. My name's Charlie Mosbrook. Today I want to talk about the power of collaboration. Open mics are fertile grounds for this. These rooms are rich with passionate ideas. When artists come together, exciting things happen. Songwriters, musicians, singers, sketch artists, writers, poets, comics, and photographers all contribute to the creative energy of an open mic. When I record, it's always the guest artist that brings something special that I would never think of on my own. I love accompanying other artists, and I get a thrill out of having others sit in on my sets. Collaborating as a community is part of what makes the open mic experience special. When Daryl and I began doing this show, we did so with the trust in each other's expertise. And that's something that's developed over time, working side by side on our own crafts during the open mics. Hey, speaking of working together side by side, let me give you a quick update of where we are with the show. We'll be making constant modifications on an ongoing basis as we take the show from idea to reality. Our goal is to become a resource for the open mic community. And by the way, please feel free to mention your open mics that you like to go to wherever you are in the world in the comments section below. Please do check the dates on the comments below. You may be reading this in 2079 for all I know. The listing could be out of date. Anyway, producing this show has been an adventure so far. Collaboration expands the depth of our creativity and speeds up the troubleshooting process. But while we're talking about trouble, let me introduce you to a very thoughtful and clever wordsmith, songwriter, and guitarist. Please let me introduce you to Matt Harmon.
Well, we're in this together, wherever we're from. Whatever our color, we march to the drum that everyone feels in the heart of the chest. It's the rhythm inside us which guides us the best. Yes, there may be a murmur or a premature fire, but bumbles and stumbles can always inspire. When you're feeling your weakest, you just stand up and shout. Don't hurt anybody, but do let it out, so that someone might hear you and lend you a hand. Help you back up, 'cause together we stand. It's the human condition. Together we thrive. If we all march in step, we're like bees in a hive. Just ignore the divisions of faith and of race, and gather your friends in a grateful embrace. It's the beat of the heart that we all feel inside, which connects us to nature and keeps us alive. Yes, we're in this together, wherever we're from. Whatever our color, we march to the same drum that everyone feels in the heart of the chest. It's the rhythm inside us which guides us the best. It's the rhythm inside us which guides us the best.
Hey, we're here with Matt Harmon. Thank you for that song. That was beautiful.
Thank you very much, Charlie.
You're a brilliant songwriter.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
When was your first open mic?
My first open mic was in around 1993. I was a senior at Cleveland Heights High School, and The open mic was at the Arabica on Coventry Road in Cleveland Heights, and you were the host of it, Chuck Mosbrook. And
Chuck Mosbrook.
that's we're going almost 30 years ago, so
That's a much younger version of me.
We've been at this craft a long time.
That kid had some hair.
I appreciate the full circleness of coming back to do your show for you.
Was guitar your first instrument?
Yes, although I guess there was always a piano in the house.
Okay.
So I would sit at the piano and just play chords, major chords, minor chords, and hum along and sing.
I remember your first record, there were some string parts, and you later told me that you did the arrangements for all those.
I did write those string parts. I had a knee injury at the time and felt a little pent up as I was healing from a knee surgery, and so I got some software that allows you to print music, a nice software that lets you make sheet music, and I started working out string parts for some songs of mine that eventually made it onto the record.
Very cool. That record was really beautifully done, and that is going to bring us into what I wanted to ask you about. So you worked with Jake Fader on that record.
Yes, and I've worked with him on all 3 of my albums to this point.
And your collaboration with him has been really just, it's been a good experience for you.
Absolutely, it has. And in fact, it was just a serendipitous Facebook post that he put out one day saying, "Hey, does anyone have any projects? I'm looking for projects." And I happened to have one in mind, and I reached out to him. I didn't really know him yet. And it's just been a neat progression and a really good working relationship I have with Jake.
That's great. He's really a talented
he is.
Producer and engineer. In addition to the musical collaborations for those records that you've done with Jake, you've also brought a few artists, graphic artists, into the mix for your CD covers.
Yeah.
Very talented painters and illustrators. Tell us about that collaboration and how those came about.
I love albums, and the Spotify era, it's becoming sort of an afterthought in some ways when you can just put a single on Spotify and hope for the best. I do love a physical package and a really nice artistic tie-in to the songwriting. So it just has always been, for me, a sort of mandatory step to making a record is to have the visual side of it. And we're lucky to know a lot of creative and talented people here, so it's just a matter of thinking of the artists you know and reaching out to the one you think could do the best job at what you have in mind.
So the first one
is the album Cosmic Yonder from 2012. That's a guy named Ricky Lewin, who was a regular at the Barking Spider, an old carriage house where a lot of us miss. We all miss it.
I remember his
greatly.
paintings on the wall.
A beautiful place, and there were paintings of his on the wall, and he would sit often at the corner of the bar and work in his sketchbook, and he was just a friend. I was actually at the Spider and had played a show and thought, you know what, I'm looking for someone to do an album cover, and we got together and just kind of kicked some ideas around, and he did really good work. That's the one with the sunset, very swirly, very sort of 60s.
They're seeing it right now as we're speaking.
Great, yeah, thanks. And then the second one was Childhood Dreams in 2016, and that album is very much a personal concept album of drawing from my own experience of losing touch with my dad growing up and using songwriting to sort of fill the hole, and using songwriters like Paul Simon and Randy Newman who have so much wisdom and insight that if you're growing up without a dad, you got to find that insight somewhere. And I got a lot of that from songwriters growing up, and so I wanted to tell that story musically, but also visually on the cover. In that case, I used Jeremy Tougeau, a Cleveland Heights resident, an art teacher, an extremely talented painter.
And your most recent one?
Yes, and that's Take Your Time is the album. And in this case, the album cover isn't what I set out to get. I called my friend Matt Tonti. I went to Cleveland Heights High School with him. He's a rabbi and a graphic artist. He takes Old Testament stories and communicates them in comic book form. And he was my first thought. Who could help me illustrate this song of mine? And I had the song already written, and I really just wanted 10 illustrations to help me tell that story for the purpose of shooting a video. And as he and I kicked the ideas around, and we would do this, he lives in D.C., so we had to do this one over Skype calls and things like that, and telephone conferences where we could hash the ideas back and forth. And the 10 illustrations I originally asked him to do became one illustration encompassing those 10 verses of the song, so that we could do one cyclical. It was just a great, the artwork evolved in the conversation and becomes, and I think with any project, as you do the project, it becomes more than you set out to make. It creates itself when you start to give it a push, and that's how that worked with Take Your Time. And it really is a direct illustration of that song. I mean, every verse in that song has an illustration.
And it really,
it
tells the story very well, and it really lended itself to a really brilliant video that the two of you guys put together.
Thank you, and that is on my YouTube channel, which is Matt Harmon Music. And I love what came out of it, because it's a song about the history of astronomy, and the human history of wondering what those points of light are out there, and that you sing about, and. I also love the concept that when we look to the stars, we're looking back in time, because we're seeing those stars as they existed when that light left, not as we're seeing them now. So the star we're looking at may very well be gone.
Oh.
It's possible that it's gone supernova and we just don't know it yet. So I like the idea of sitting out on your deck playing the guitar and looking back in time at the history of everything that brought us to that moment. And hopefully that's what that artwork communicates. And
well, you're a very thoughtful lyricist and a very clever wordsmith.
Thank you.
And I've really enjoyed those collaborations, because I think those artists really captured your storytelling, which you're very good at.
Thank you. And those guys are immensely talented and just really generous to
give their time and
to give their time and to consider your idea and help you do what you're trying to do. And it's really neat. It's fun to work with people on this type of stuff, isn't it?
It is. Well, thank you for working with us here today.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. Hey, this is Matt Harmon. Thanks, Matt.
My pleasure.
And it won't be long. Well, I heard her say, well, as we waited at the station in the early hours of the day, and just like a song, with an old familiar melody, the number 5 will soon arrive and we'll all be on our way. About 7:15 the train is pulling in. It's right on time, so let the journey begin. Aboard the Zephyr out of Denver and on through to Emeryville. And overhead, guitars are safely stored. Conductor shouts, will everybody on board? For the Zephyr out of Denver and on through to Emeryville. And over the mountains and canyons and empty old towns. We're dining in the desert while the sun is sinking down. Well, come the night time, we sped across the Emeryville flats with a pint of whiskey shared that we carried in a stainless steel flask. And I tried to write, but I guess my day is done, 'cause it's hard to stay awake when you listen to them steel rails hum. And making up time lost to the day, with no more climbs beyond the Great Salt Lake. Aboard the Zephyr out of Denver and on through to Emeryville. And morning breaks and coffee is poured. Conductor shouts, will everybody on board?
Pulled the Zephyr out of Denver and on through to Emeryville, and over the mountains and canyons and empty old towns, and up around the diner summit. This train is slowing down behind a freight train. We're losing time across the Golden States. I guess it's never quite as simple as you think that it's gonna be. And as the sun began to fade, we looked out on the San Francisco Bay. Aboard the Zephyr out of Denver, we were pulling into Emeryville.
Hey, that's Charlie's Open Mic. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe and check us out on Patreon.